Okay, good afternoon everybody. I'm Frank from Open Minds. We're a hosting company. We host all kinds of websites, from very small websites to big dedicated servers, clustered setup, etc. I'll give a talk today about hosting 2.0 because I think that one of the aspects of the whole internet and web publishing world that hasn't changed a lot under the whole 2.0 hype or revolution or whatever you call it is actually the hosting. And I'll tell you from a hosting perspective what the problems are, what the advantages are, and where I think we might be going in the next few years or months. Oh yeah, a side note, please don't go to our website at the moment because it's very web 1.0. So we're going to change that, but it isn't finished yet. Small overview, I'll talk about a typical web 1.0 hoster and how hosting used to be until a year or two ago. We'll see what has changed both technically and price-wise. We'll see what hosting in a 2.0 world would mean, what has changed, what hasn't. And then I'll hope to get a discussion from you, from what would you expect from a hosting company for your web 2.0 application or site. So hosting in a web 1.0 world, remember the old websites, they were all pretty static. When you had HTML files, you uploaded your JPEGs and your site worked. It means that a site consumed low or almost no CPU capacity because of serving static sites, serving static images. There's nothing easier than that. Sites were mostly text, no photos, podcast, photography. There were, of course, CGI scripts, but they were very few, and they always followed the same system. They read data from a script, from a URL. They did something, usually involving the database, and they outputted something. And that's it. They started, they processed, they ended. This means that the overhead involved in starting and stopping the entire CGI environment wasn't that important. Your page took a little bit longer to load than a normal static page, but the difference wasn't that big. Limits in those days were determined by disk space, which was very expensive, bandwidth, which was even more expensive, and typically web 1.0 hoster, they put the website, so the database, the mail files, etc., they all put it on the same website. It means that disk space was actually the limiting factor for us. We could put up to 100 or even a few hundred, or in some cases even 1,000 websites on a server, and then we run out of disk space and then we install a new server, etc., etc. This isn't the case anymore. First, storage costs went down, which is a good thing, and they will continue to get down. Same with bandwidth, they went down a lot. Prices seems to have stabilized, even slightly going up the last few months, but we're not back to the situation a few years ago, thank God. CPU prices went down, but the CPUs now consume a lot more power than they used to. Power does not only mean you have to provide the electricity, but you also have to cool it. I mean, a server with 42 one-use servers in it, if you don't have at least 3 aircos standing next to it, it's hot like hell. Second problem, electrical power. Prices went up. This combined with the previous entry means that electrical power is now a very important factor in total data center costs. This wasn't the case a few years ago, it is the case nowadays. On the other hand, we have new technologies that allow us to do things better or differently. First is virtualization, which is actually you take one CPU, one server, you divide it in 2, 4, 8, even 30 or 50 small logical CPUs which operate independent from another. This allows you to effectively run multiple independent or pseudo-independent servers in one server case, one CPU, etc. Xen software, a few of you might have heard from it. It's a very promising piece of software that does exactly that. And even more better news, the upcoming Intel and AMD chips will include support directly in the chip for these kind of applications. Sorry?
Today.
Yeah, especially in the case of Intel. The AMDs are still waiting for them to hit the market, but they have been announced and they will be available in the very near future. Second is there has been a lot of development the last years in what I would call server data center cluster management software. It allows you together, especially with software like Zen, to deploy servers, applications in a fraction of the time that it used to cost, and to be able. It enables us to manage that in a far more efficient way. It also enables us to do real load balancing without the expensive hardware that was needed a few years ago. We can now do it in software, etc. Also, database replication has become usable now, whereas it existed a few years ago, but it wasn't really stable. So all of this should allow us to get better reliability and uptimes. I mean, in our business, the holy grail is what we call 5 nines uptime, which means 99.999% availability. It's difficult to manage, but if you look at the evolution, it should be possible. However, it is realistic. Yes, this is realistic for very specific applications. In a well-tuned environment where you know exactly what your application does, how it will behave when you change service, how it will behave when one of the 3 database servers is down, etc., etc. However, it is not realistic in our typical environment, which is a shared hosting environment with software uploaded by 10s, 20, maybe 100 different developers. Some take scalability and manageability into account, some don't. You sometimes hit bugs to it, which are very hard to debug when you migrate a service from one server to another. So I don't know if there are developers in the room, but I want to ask them, please make sure your application is scalable if you develop one. First of all, make sure your application is database friendly. The ideal world would be that you separate your insert, your update, and your delete queries to your database from your select queries, which means that you can have load balancing databases when you don't have to write to your databases no problem. You can just replicate them and everything will be fine. However, writing to a database is still a bit tricky to manage if your application isn't specifically developed with that in mind. So please separate those two and make sure that if you write to always the same database and it goes down, that a normal visitor of your website can still access the website. He won't be able to post comments, or he won't be able to do exotic stuff, but at least make sure they can view at least some part of the website. Second is towards load balancers. Think about how you handle uploads, think about how you handle sessions, etc., etc. By the way, I spoke to Dries of Drupal during the lunchtime, and I was very glad to hear that Drupal now has a patch which allows exactly to do that. So if the other developers would follow that, we can scale a lot easier. Now, Web 2.0 and other modern applications, what has changed? Disk space goes up. Everybody has a photo blog, everybody uploads photos, podcasts on their websites, etc. This all consumes disk space. However, disk space prices went down, so we should be able to follow that evolution. Same for bandwidth. Not only the rich media, but popular websites get more visitors, more interaction, Ajax, etc. It's a very nice tool, but it consumes a lot more bandwidth than non-Ajax sites. However, here as well, prices went down, have stabilized to a pretty decent level, so it shouldn't be a problem to follow. However, what is a challenge for us is the ratio of dynamic pages versus static pages. Old websites used to have only or almost only static pages, which are very easy to serve, consumed almost no CPU time. The dynamic pages, dynamic content management systems, they all do at least 30 queries before they show the front page of the site. This puts a strain on the CPUs. Moreover, the old CGI websites, they started, they did something, and they returned the results, and they were finished. This isn't the case anymore. Especially with Ajax, they continuously interact, do something, wait for input, do another thing, give it back, wait for input, etc., etc. So the overhead in starting the CGI environment is much larger now than it used to be. All of this means that we can actually put less sites on server than before. This might surprise you, but CPU has become the limit. Before, limiting factors were disk space and to a lesser extent bandwidth, but now we have disk space, 500 gigabyte disk, you can put 4 in the server, and that takes this much space, so that's not a problem. CPU is a problem. So we run out of CPU power before we run out of disk space. It's completely the inverse of the old situation. As CPU is the limiting factor, hosting packages, to be fair, should be determined by CPU power. However, this is very difficult. It's difficult to measure them effectively. We can do it to some extent by counting all the what we call CPU seconds script or site takes up, but it's not easy. It's even more difficult to explain it to your customers. How can you present what? It's even for us. It's difficult to make predictions about how much CPU time will a site that we're developing now and will go live in a month. How much will it take? We can predict how much disk space it will take. We can predict how much bandwidth it will take. We can predict how much users it will have. But even from all those data, it's quite difficult to predict how much strain it will put on your web server. So, last part is, what do you need from a web company? Basically, you need 4 things. You need bandwidth and disk space. You need enough CPU time. You need something to control and upload your website. And you need support. Let's look into more detail. Disk space and bandwidth, ideally, you need as much as you reasonably need for your site. You should never end up in a situation where you run out of disk space. This is the ideal world, of course. You need enough CPU time to make your site run smooth. But then again, what is enough? And you need to make sure that if your site is on the same server as another very, very, very busy site, that very, very, very busy site doesn't affect the speed of your site. So we need to provide innovative resources to control and upload your website. We've been thinking about this, and should we offer, for instance, one-click WordPress installers, where you have on your hosting control panel, you have one button, install me a WordPress 2. Whatever latest version, you give it a title and it's done. It sets up the database, it sets up the title, it even creates an admin account for you and everything. Should we provide that? Should we shift from being a hosting provider where you buy hosting packages, which is actually disk space on the server via an FTP account, to, for instance, a Drupal or a WordPress or any other application package? In the old times, you just uploaded your HTML files, your JPEGs, and you were done, your site was ready. Nowadays, you not only need to do that, you need to configure your blog, you need to configure your content management system. Sometimes you need to set up databases for that. Should we shift from providing disk space to providing a managed blog? I don't know. Should we not only allow FTP uploads, but do you need CVS, Subversion, WebDev access as well? I'm not sure if we should go that direction or not. You want, of course, helpful help. Nowadays, we almost feel the need to provide application support. It means that the customer can call us and say, hey, on this blog I installed this WordPress blog on that account. I have a problem with this or that WordPress plugin. Should our technical support be able to handle those questions, and to what extent? Should we even go one step further and provide you with techie advice before you start thinking about your application? And you mail us and you say, hey, I have a problem, I need to create this or that website. What do you think would be the best solution for that website? Should we provide server-wide anti-spam solutions? We've done it for mail. Nowadays, we see that spammers shift to blogs, referrer spam, trackback spam. It's a huge plague. Should we install on all our servers, server-wide, those countermeasures or not? I don't know. We even get calls from customers saying, hey, I have this hosting package with you, but I'm not, my ranking in Google is bad. Can you help us? You should change your hosting package so we can get better ranking. Of course, this is bullshit, but how far should we go in giving our customers SEO advice?
Not totally bullshit, because IP addresses in backlinks are very important in Google.
Yeah, and backlinks, but that would mean we would have two sites on the same.
But for us it's important, because linking from sites we've created to our web design website,
yeah.
With all our customers, if they're on different IP addresses, they get more weight for us, and if they're all clustered on one IP address. So the line is blurry.
Yeah. And the last part of my presentation is actually a discussion. I would like to hear from you, the forerunners in the whole Web 2.0 space. What would you expect from your hosting company? How far should we go? How far do you want support from us? How far do you want actually managed applications for us? Do you prefer the old paradigm where you just get a bunch of disk space, etc.? So I'd like to hear all your input.
I didn't see anything about memory, internal memory, because you have some applications in Web 2.0 that need a lot of data immediately available.
Yeah.
So they should preferably be cached in internal memory rather than every time be fetched from the database.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
Basically, we've seen that memory requirements run in parallel with CPU requirements. If you have a very CPU-intensive website, chances are you'll need a lot of memory. Of course, there are exceptions. For instance, we have there are certain database packages which go very inefficiently, which handle memory very inefficiently. But most of the time we see that they run in parallel. So I haven't mentioned them because I think there are a lot of techie specs, and most people here aren't as techie as I am. So, but where it noted CPU, you could note CPU/memory. Another thing is that adding memory is easier than adding a CPU to a server. Our standard, not even very high-end web server comes with a certain CPU. Maybe you can add a second CPU, but you can practically always add memory. So adding memory is a bit easier than adding CPU.
So what you're basically saying is that adding memory to a server isn't as big as an influence on the pricing than having to add a second CPU, for instance. Yeah.
Because most of the time, either you buy, from our philosophy, there might be hosting companies that do it otherwise, but either you buy a single CPU system, and then there's only place for one CPU, or you buy a 2 CPU system, but we will never buy a 2 CPU system with only one CPU installed.
Okay.
If we go,
you have to migrate to a new server.
But then again, regarding migration, the virtualization and whole XAML software stuff will practically provide live migration. It means that you have virtual server running on one piece of hardware, and you can migrate that entire server without stopping any of the applications to another one in a few seconds time. So adding hardware is doable, but your application has to scale.
What about the speed of the internet? With all the websites offering streaming high definition television and movies, and doesn't that has an influence on the speed of the internet?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about really big sites that, for instance, Google Video or anything else, or if you're working with a large broadcaster and they want to offer all of the TV shows by internet, then you're talking a different story. However, if you're talking about people putting video casts of today on the internet, as long as you don't have 2,000, 5,000, or even 10,000 simultaneous viewers, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, of course, internet speeds also evolve, and they up to a certain level, it's the pricing issue isn't that big. So that scales more easy than for instance CPU.
My main concern as a web developer, I do not ask for application help, although it's nice, but what I would like is tools to monitor, to check CPU usage. If CPU usage is the critical factor, I should be able to monitor my one website and get an idea of how CPU intensive it is, and if it's too high, I'll try to scale it, I'll try to make it better. But now I'm working in kind of a dark space. What is CPU intensive, what is not?
The problem is that even for us, it's not always easy to monitor it in an effective way. We can, when we get load problems, what do? We search, for instance, database queries. We monitor all queries that take more than a certain amount of time to process. We get those and we try to see if we can improve the database structure, etc., etc. If we notice that there's high load on the server, if we can interact with the system, the moment we see the high load, we can usually determine it comes from this or that website. However, it is something that for instance, a client mailed us, yesterday evening my site was slow, and then we go to the logs and we see that there was a CPU spike. These spikes usually take to 30 seconds, 90 seconds, but then it's over. And after those 90 seconds, it's very difficult to I mean, you can't monitor everything. Then the monitoring itself will take more CPU power than websites that can't be perked. So I've mentioned it, even for us, it's quite difficult. So I think that I've noticed a few of our American colleagues that are a bit more advanced than us in this. What they offer is, they offer almost everybody the same package with huge amounts of gigabytes and gigabytes of disk space, gigabytes and gigabytes of data transfer. And in the small agreements, the user level agreements, they put that if your site is a threat to other sites on the server, they'll contact you and either ask you to optimize it or change it to another package. However, they don't say what being a threat to other sites is. So it's all quite subjective.
Okay, I agree, but what I want to do as a web developer is learn.
Yeah.
So it's nice if you fix my problems, but it's even nicer if you tell me what my problems are, let me fix them myself and find a solution, so next time I can build it correctly.
Yeah.
So that's better. It's nice if you fix my problems, but that's a one-time solution.
Yeah.
So monitoring is a subset of that. It's one way of doing it. Give me the tools to improve my CPU usage.
So you're
Or give you at least
basically
feedback.
Or feedback.
Basically, you're talking about service.
Service, not in the way of correct my mistakes, but tell me if I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually, especially with database, we've talked about it over lunch. It's not mistakes. It's just if you perform a certain query a lot of times, there are ways you can optimize the speed for that certain query.
There's a difference in you changing it.
Yeah, I know.
And next time I'll make the same mistake and you'll have to change it again.
Yeah.
But if you tell me, next time I'll do it correct.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep that in mind.
But ideally, monitoring for me, if I can monitor it, I can create a feedback loop, do something, track it, analyze it, and change it. If I can create that feedback loop without your help, that's better.
There are certain ways we can allow you to do it, especially with the databases. And
You ask me what do I want?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Could you briefly tell us about open lines? How old you are, how big you are, where you look at it?
Yeah. Well, our company started about 5 years ago. A couple of friends that got together at the uni and started information services for the university as volunteers. And we found out that there was a market for that kind of stuff, and we basically created a company. Nowadays, most of our customers are Belgian or Flemish small to medium-sized enterprises, but we have kids from 18 years old who have just a small web page with three photos on it. But we also did projects for the government, for several broadcasting organizations, etc. We specialize in hosting setups, but not the regular just click and buy, have a straight website setups. Specialize in the more special, challenging setups. So this could be a load balancer setup for a company, or disaster recovery with data location and foresight.
And where are the service located? In your building or somewhere?
No, they're spread out over 4 data centers. One in Zaventem, in Interaction, which is one of the largest in Belgium. We use a Versatel site in Ghent, not in our office but quite near to it. In Amsterdam we have a few servers, and in Antwerp. We also run our own network, so we are not depending on one internet provider. If one link fails, we have 3 or 4 backup links that immediately take over. So quite independent.
And you provide VPS?
Sorry? Yep.
And you provide VPS?
Yeah, both Xen-based and we used to use a lot of Linux vServe. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that project.
What would be convenient with VPS, I think, is a pre-configured package.
Sorry?
Pre-configured package.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I'd say I'd like to purchase an account for Rails, exclusively based on no PHP and anything else. So Ruby, Rails, SVN, just that.
Yeah.
No, first, just one click.
We'll keep that in mind. And, we offer it to some clients now, but they just give us an application and they say, hey, I want 10 times this service, or when I order a server next week or next month or next year, just install the same image. And we already have offered that for some, but we will extend it. Other remarks, suggestions? Are there companies that aren't as NetLash and more end users of blocks of content management systems? All developers?
Yeah.
All agencies?
I think there is a difference between web developers who are developing something for another client, end users. End users demand the one-click install.
Yeah.
I think web developers do not demand, they want more control, more tweaking, more own power. I don't believe in, that's my opinion, a hosting provider like you that provides a one-click WordPress install, unless you go to the mass market, to the end user. And I think then you have to have critical mass, that you can't do that in a small company. But that's my opinion. I think there's the 6 parts of this world who can handle that better.
Yeah.
Remarks and suggestions for us?
Yeah, a fast help desk. I'm hosted at one of these hosting companies that offers a huge load of bandwidth and disk space for an incredibly low price. But as you say, CPU is the issue. I once uploaded a bunch of pictures to my gallery software that I installed myself. And of course, if you upload a whole bunch of pictures in a short time, the CPU overloaded and they shut out my website for using too much CPU. And it took almost a week for them to figure out and to restore access. And well, that's a bit sucky because I always had to wait for more than a day for a reply on their help desk. And if I could just chat with somebody for 5 minutes, it would have been solved.
Yeah. And would you prefer phone support, chat support, email support?
Chat support would be nice because I'm at the computer anyway, so.
Other people that feel the same, what ways of contacting your service provider do you prefer?
Phone support.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to speak someone directly to tell my problem and to discuss with that person.
Yeah.
It's not the medium. It's not the medium that's important. It's
The speed.
the speed of reply, and the feeling that you have a live person.
Yeah.
So chat, email, or video, or phone, it's all the same as long as you get a fast reply from a real person and not an automatic system.
Yeah. One comment, email support of course isn't live. So I know that quite some of our customers prefer not to mail that.
Well, email support can feel live
Mm-hmm.
if you respond immediately. So
Yeah.
that's for me. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Problem with email support is that if you are certain about the length it's going to take the other people to respond, you try and put as much as you can in this first mail.
Yeah.
Because if you have to just wait another 8 hours to get a comment, there was a typo I don't understand, and then you have to resend and correction, so you try. So that's not very convenient.
Yeah. So what do you use when you have to contact your hosting provider?